We will start it with the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. So the first item of business is the approval of the minutes from May 18, 2020. This time, are there any additions or corrections to those minutes?
No, I didn't see any.
No.
I'd move to approve them.
Who was that?
Bill, Bill's on. And
Oh,
Scott.
Bill.
Finally.
Is there a second?
I second.
It's been moved and seconded to approve the minutes of May 18, 2020. All those in favor, raise your hand, please. Okay, anyone opposed? Okay, minutes are approved. Next item, do we have, Gina, are there any comments, citizen comments on Facebook, or has anyone received any emails or anything? Any citizens' comments about any issue not on the agenda? Okay. Minutes are approved. Okay, moving on to the Carroll and Frederick County Planner. We do have Hannah here, Hannah Weber from the Carroll County Planning Department.
Hello, everybody.
Hi, Hannah, welcome.
How are you guys? Hope everybody's staying safe.
We are,
we wanted to come and give an update on the by request phase of the comp rezoning.
Yes.
All the staff reports were turned in and everything is on the county website. That everything was put on the website last week, I believe. The one that pertains to you guys on Ridge Road, the employment campus, was found favorable. That whole staff report you guys can find on the website. Do you guys have any other questions?
Okay, so that it was found favorable, have they still have to have a public hearing on that?
Yes, so it is going to the Planning Commission on July 21st, and Mary and I are going to put together a presentation where public comment will be taken.
Okay, what time
And
is
then-
that meeting on the 21st?
9 a.m. I'm not sure if exactly that our presentation will be at 9, but the Planning Commission meeting starts at 9.
Okay,
And is that still currently going to be virtual, or is that going to be an in-person meeting?
I'm gonna assume that's gonna be virtual with the way things are going, but whenever we find out more information, I'll be sure to send it out to you guys.
And would you also mind, could you, when you guys come up with your report or PowerPoint or whatever you're presenting to, can you forward that to me? So
Yeah.
I can sort of pass it out to everybody else, and possibly even if you do have a staff report for what was presented to the Planning Commission. I know you said it's on your website, but if you can email that to me, then I can just email
Yeah.
it out to everybody so they can be informed.
Yeah, sure thing. I can do that.
So Hannah, one other request. If it's going to be a virtual meeting, is there any way to send John a link to that meeting so that we can watch it?
Yeah, I'm not sure exactly how we're doing it yet. We're still kind of deciding, especially taking comment and everything. But you'll be able to watch it live through the county website on their media portal.
Okay.
okay. Any other questions, concerns for Hannah? All righty, seeing none, Hannah, thank you for
Sounds good. Thanks, guys.
participating. We appreciate it.
Yeah, thank
Of
you for your
course.
time.
Next is the Frederick Planner. Have we heard anything from Tim Goodfellow, John?
I have not received any communications from,
Oh,
are you okay?
I thought he hit the baby's head, but that's okay. It was his elbow.
No, I have not heard anything from Frederick County.
Okay. All righty. Kind of reach out to him and see, you know, if he plans on, we'd like to hear something from him here in the next month or so. I almost forgot before we continue. There are two items that we would like to add to the agenda. This should have been done at the beginning. I apologize. I'm asking to amend the agenda. After number 6, introduction, discussion, and decision, I'd like to add a discussion on the MXD ordinance that town council has, and also a discussion about ordinance 2020-18. Does anyone have any objections to that? Any of the commission members have objection? Okay, so then in the order, 7 future items will become 10 and adjournment will become 11.
Won't 7 become 9? Or is it, did you add something else?
6, 7, 8, 9, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
9. 9 and 10.
Okay.
I don't
Thanks,
know how much,
Leslie.
I can't say how much long I'm going to last on this one. The days are very long to me.
Okay, that's all right. We still have a quorum. Okay. Our next thing is for introduction and discussion is the concept site plan for S-19-0032. That's the Twin Arch Business Park, Lot 32, Section 3. This is a site development plan for flex space building in a parking lot. John, do you want to kind of give us the highlights of the staff report?
John, you're on mute.
John,
On
you're
mute.
muted.
Come on, John.
I didn't want to have that on all the time, so I apologize.
That's okay.
My phones are dinging. So again, this plan was seen by the town years ago. We do have Eric from Cass Engineering on the phone or on the Zoom call as well. Again, this was a plan that was presented and approved through both process, concept, and final. Is that right, Eric? And then the final never got finalized, I think, or no, it was always a concept.
I believe the way it worked actually is that the final was approved back in 2009, January of 2009, and then was never enacted on. I know the applicant came back in 2015 to apply for a red line revision, basically to propose a temporary use. The applicant owns the adjacent property as well. And they were going to use it at the time for storage of vehicles that they were being worked on. They just, their business is such that good for them that they, you know, had more vehicles in service than they had space for on site. So they were attempting to, at the time, use the currently vacant property to sort of mitigate that extra parking. But again, that sort of never went through. We got to the point where all the plans, I believe, were in for signature, but they never paid bonds, and then it just kind of died. So recently, the applicant came back to us and said, hey, we'd like to restart this project, and we'd like to see what we can do. So we filed this plan, largely very similar to what was approved originally back in 2009. There were some minor amendments to just some site layout, but the building size itself stayed the same. We knew there was a chance that Carroll County would comment on stormwater management related issues, because between 2009 and 2020, the state of Maryland changed stormwater management requirements. So we tried to see if the county would allow us to proceed under the old regs, sort of knowing that wasn't going to happen, but we figured we'd take a shot anyway. So the plan you have in front of you, again, sort of shows a very conceptual layout, and we've since received comment from Carroll County that are going to require some tweaks in order to address current stormwater management regulations. And then I do have some comments on the staff report. We can sort of walk through them sort of as we go, if that's okay. But I guess I'll let you guys see if you guys have any comments or questions before I kind of get into that stuff.
Okay, so it says here that the environmental site delineation, the floodplain management review was found to be exempt from the requirements of the code?
Let me see.
Okay, that's not that's not stormwater.
No, that's basically because it's a vacant site with no
Okay.
forest, no streams, no stream buffers, no wetlands. Basically, there's
I
nothing.
apologize, I found it.
there's no environmental restrictions.
Okay. John, just give us the highlights of this.
Again, so it's a 12,000 square foot fixed office space, office warehouse space. Again, it's in the Twin Arch Business Park. The majority of that park has been already pre-designed for forest conservation easements, et cetera, and have been approved for that actual subdivision of the lot. So again, each parcel would come in for a site plan and a site plan review and development ultimately. Excuse me. The current plan is required to have 43 spaces, I think it is, based upon the 3.5 spaces for every 1,000 square feet. As it's designed and shown, it does meet those requirements. I think the building itself moved to the west from the previous plan to allow a one-way access around the side of the building for better flow inside the parking lot, which I think is a great idea. Again, it's in the industrial park. It is zoned industrial. It is a flex use. It is in the water sewer existing final planning, and should have allocation related to that property already. I think they applied for allocation again when they resubmitted.
John, this is Bill.
Hey,
This
Bill.
this is adjacent to Mount Airy Collision, is it not?
Yes, sir. They own both parcels.
Yep, that's what I thought. Okay.
Again, it's kind of on the right as you're heading on Backacre Circle towards the new Brittany Manor subdivision, right after Mount Airy Collision, like Bill just said.
Okay. And you say this has been given to Streets and Roads and they have looked at it?
Yes, ma'am. They were forwarded a plan when it came in the last submission.
All righty.
And I have not heard anything back from them.
Okay. Does the commissioner, anyone on the commission have any questions? Okay, Gina, are there any comments?
She told me earlier that there was 18 people watching and nobody had any comments.
Okay. All right.
Still no comments.
Okay, thank you. Does anyone else have any questions? Okay.
So Eric, you had some concerns you said about the staff report. Do you want to bring those up now or do you want to address them later?
Yeah, that's fine. I just wanted to clarify a few things just to make sure that everybody was aware. My copy of the staff report called for that the building was warehouse. I just want to confirm what you had said earlier that it is a flex.
Can you refer, excuse me, to page numbers when you're making comments? No, just so we can know where you're.
Sure.
So is the date of yours, Eric, June 29th, 2020 at the top, the staff report?
It is, yes.
And so in the concept site development approval, and it says request project, file number, applicant, engineer, proposed use, flex warehouse, office space?
Correct, yes. It does say that there. However, if you proceed to, let's see what page it's on. It is page 4. The top heading is parking areas. It does reference that the total interior square footage of the building requires 24 spaces, even though 43 have been provided. And that 24 spaces refers to a warehouse usage, not a flex industrial usage.
Okay.
I don't know if that's a huge deal, but I just want to sort of make sure that something doesn't happen later down the line, that
Well, we can strike that out of the staff report if you'd like.
Okay. If it doesn't matter to you guys, it doesn't matter to me. Just want to make
I
sure
think
that.
it's better to strike it out. My question, okay, so what is their intent of being in this building?
The intent is to create individual spaces that would be leased to end users. So there would be 4 or 5 or 3 individual tenants, and those uses could vary from potentially another auto shop to it could be storage. Anything compatible in that zone.
Okay.
Realistically could be in there.
And so we have concerns from one of the other town council members, Mr. Munder, about that specific issue. Is that, we have a parking issue currently on Back Acre Circle, and the people parking out on Back Acres. And if we're getting multiple uses in there, possibly another repair shop, then you have additional cars sitting now on the parking lot that are taking up parking spaces for all the other individual units. I guess, how can we safeguard that this is going to be not an issue?
Well, I don't know how to answer that question.
Right.
I mean, the likelihood of it being another repair shop is, I would consider that extremely low. I would consider that a very poor business decision by whomever. But again, it's certainly, I mean, it's a compatible use in that zone. And I don't necessarily want to say that it's impossible that would go there. I don't know how to safeguard against the concerns that you have. I know that, again, the plan meets the parking requirements, but I don't really know how else to give you assurances.
So if I'm reading this correctly, they are providing 19 more spaces than what's actually required, correct?
No,
No.
That is incorrect.
It
So
says the proposed site plan provides 43 spaces.
correct. So under section 112-7 of the town code, that's where it lists out the parking requirements, depending on usage. Warehouse usage requires 2 parking spaces per 1,000 square feet of gross floor area. So for a 12,000 square foot building, 2 parking spaces per 1,000 square feet gives you 24 spaces. So that's where that 24 spaces comes from. The application itself is for flex/industrial use. And that requires 3.5 spaces per 1,000.
3,000.
So that's the difference. That's where you come up with, it's actually 42 spaces are required per code.
Okay, and you would only, and whoever is in the, renting the space would only be using those 43 spaces, right?
Yes, yes. The intent is that the spaces provided are adequate for the uses that will be ultimately there.
And each of those uses will have to come in for a zoning certificate. Divided into multiple parcels or multiple units. Each one of those units would have to come in for a building permit for a fit out. And then at that point in time, they'd have to get a zoning certificate. And then I would be looking at the use going in there and making sure it has adequate parking to support that use related to it.
Yeah, because it's flex space. We don't know the size of each of those units yet until they come in. You could limit via the square footage, the number of spaces that unit, whatever it was going to be, you could identify the spaces that would be earmarked for that space, for that whoever business, I guess.
Right, like assigned parking spaces.
Yes, yeah.
I think there's another concern as well that we've already experienced there in that industrial area, and that's possibly the change of tenants over time, which changes the traffic pattern and has been a concern in the past. So we need to consider that possibility as well, and how we would operate it and how we would enforce it, and how it should be stipulated, perhaps.
Well, they all have to come in for a zoning certificate, so I think that's where you would monitor it from there. I think we've come to the conclusion that the one where the issue we're having the problem with did not have its own separate zoning certificate. So we've already straightened up on that. And then my suggestion of assigned parking to each one of the different areas when you find out what the size is going to be would be the only other option. Is there anything else, Eric, in here that you wanted to note to us?
Yes, I did want to, 1 second, let me confirm a page number real quick. Also on page 4, it's under the heading of pedestrian circulation and safety walkways. The comment reads, sidewalks will be installed along street frontage in accordance with the subdivision plan. The sidewalks are existing. So I just want to make sure that everybody knows that they're already there and that they don't necessarily need to be installed by the applicant.
Okay, thank you.
And then I have 2 more items.
Okay.
Just gonna find out where it went. Sorry, I didn't plan for page numbers.
Well, if you can just even describe like what you're looking at, that's probably good enough. Like,
Sure. There's a requirement speaking to reciprocal ingress egress between lots 31 and 32.
Okay.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, that's,
And I highlighted that because I was
4.
concerned
oh, that's also 4.
that you have 2 different possible owners, and to have an easement language to be allow for that ingress egress, because there's one main entrance that's going to be
Sure. On the record plat for both properties, both lot 31 and lot 32, there is a use in common entrance easement that is 40 feet wide, and looks like it's 40. So it looks like it's 40 by 40. That is identified on both record plats. That ingress egress easement is also identified on our concept plan, sheet number 3 of 3.
Okay.
okay, so yeah, it says it's recorded on plat book 48, page 108. So I didn't catch that. I apologize.
Okay. Nope, that's
I
fine.
wanted to make sure. I was concerned that I was going to get lost in the shuffle.
Nope, that's okay.
And I'll reference that in the revised staff report.
Okay. And then the last item I have is with regards to signage, which is also on page 4. There is no freestanding signage proposed. There will be no freestanding signage proposed, which is also the same as it was in the original 2009 plan. So any signage will be on the building, not for each individual tenant. There will be no freestanding signage along.
There won't be a monument or a sign or anything. Okay.
Correct.
Okay.
And I think that takes care of my stuff.
Awesome. Does anyone else have any questions or concerns? Okay, seeing no comments. Do I hear a motion for a recommendation?
I'll make a motion.
Okay.
And I would echo staff's recommendation that that we propose conditional approval of the site plan for lot 32 of Twin Arch Business Park, Section 3, but subject to all town and county agency comments being addressed.
Is there a second?
I'll second it.
It's been moved and seconded that we recommend conditional approval of the concept site plan. I'm going to ask, please, everyone in favor, please raise your hand and leave it raised until we make sure we have everyone. I can see everyone's hand. Okay. Motion carries. Did you get that, John?
Yeah.
Or whoever, okay.
So who seconded it?
Judy?
Okay, perfect. Thank you.
Next, we go to, we'll do the 2020-18. Oh,
Actually,
No, I'm
Roxanne,
sorry,
you have,
number 6,
you have
I'm
number
sorry.
6, yep.
The final site plan, Town of Mount Airy wastewater treatment plant, sludge dewatering blower building addition. Barney, I think this is yours if you would like to.
Yes. Yep. So we have a down at the waste treatment plant, our sludge building. As things have progressed in time and our a few things are changing. We need a little bit more building for the trucks to come through and how the sludge containers get stored. So this is a 1,800 square foot building addition. It's 36 by 50. It's going off the north side of that building. And I don't know if anybody's familiar with the waste plant, but if you come into the gate, it's the building far to the left, kind of closest to Nottingham. So again, it's just a small addition to the north side, and it's under 5,000 square foot of disturbed area. So in Carroll County, it'll count as like a simple site plan, with a lot of exemptions. And I'm just looking for your approval with condition all state, county, and town comments are addressed.
Are there any questions or concerns from anyone here?
Barney, what would be the time frame to execute this?
It's in design right now. We have this upcoming budget. We have the work to be completed in this upcoming budget. So by June 30 of 2021, it would be complete.
All right. So at this point, it's potentially planned for the next fiscal year budget.
Correct.
Okay. All right.
As far as architecture, it's a mason, most of those buildings down there have similar masonry, and this would be constructed just the same as the rest of it. So the looks won't change much.
Okay, are there any comments that came in on this?
No, there was no more.
Okay, seeing none, do I hear a motion
Make a motion.
to recommend approval?
Yeah, I'll make a motion.
Okay,
Recommend that the planning commission approve the final site plan for the sludge dewatering building addition with the condition that all state, county, and town comments are addressed.
I
It's-
second it.
who's second?
Judy.
Oh, it's been moved and seconded that we, the planning commission give approval, final approval for the site plan of the sludge dewatering building addition. All those in favor, please raise your hand so we can see it. Those opposed? Awesome. It's been approved.
Thank you.
So the next item we'll do is the 2020-18 ordinance. And Tom, can you take that, please?
Sure. So under the town code, developments that receive a special exception from the Board of Appeals expire within 1 year if by that point in time a building permit has not been obtained, if necessary, to proceed with the development. As we know, during COVID, hearings have been held remotely but generally speaking, the Board of Appeals has not met. And indeed, their hearings tend to be, at least conceivably, could involve witnesses, cross-examination, and things like that. So essentially, one special exception has been identified as about to expire on, I think, July 15. That'd be the only special exception that is will have or is set to expire during the period of time that the COVID emergency began, which basically was March 17 from the governor's order, basically shutting down businesses. The ordinance therefore asks or would essentially extend all special exceptions that have expired or due to expire between the dates of March 17 and July 31st, just to pick a date. And that extension would occur by ordinance without Board of Appeals approval to January of 2021. Just because we haven't been able to, or really can't set public hearings. We could, but it would be cumbersome to do it for a Board of Appeals hearing. So that's really all the ordinance does. Again, it really applies to only one special exception that we're aware of, and we're confident it is only one. And essentially, it's sort of an extension due to the fact that COVID has kind of prevented hearings by the Board of Appeals to extend these special exceptions. So that's all it is, and it requires, because it is a Chapter 112 change, first a recommendation one way or the other from the Planning Commission, then ultimately a hearing, public hearing for the Town Council, and then of course Town Council approval of the ordinance.
Any questions from any of the commissioners about this?
No.
Okay, seeing none. So you're looking for, Tom, for us to give a favorable recommendation to this ordinance?
Or unfavorable, I mean,
Okay.
any kind of.
Yay or nay? Okay.
There's still no public comments, if any.
Okay. So is everyone in favor of doing a favorable recommendation to extend?
I guess I just have one question, which is, so is there a direct correlation in this particular case that you found between the COVID shutdown? Because you said it's a year, so they had from July of 2019, and we just decided not to do it. Just curious.
No, so this particular development is the final section of Wildwood Park, I believe, Section 7, if I'm not mistaken. They initially got their special exception years ago, but then subsequent to that got, I think, a 2 or 3 year extension from the Board of Appeals.
Right.
Which was, and there may have even been yet another extension in there, but anyway, the last extension was due to expire, I believe, on July 15, 2020. They did request a hearing before the Board of Appeals. I don't know when that request came in, John, but it was, so I just don't know the date.
It was March 28th.
Okay, so you're saying they requested a hearing before the Board of Appeals for the extension?
Yes, they did.
Okay, I got you.
They did. And basically we said, look, we're in the middle of COVID and we didn't know how long it was going to last.
No, I understand. That's the trigger. So yeah. All right. Thank you.
Okay.
It's a fair request.
I'm sorry?
No, I was just saying, it seems fair then to go ahead and extend it because no one's doing any business.
And I was reached out by the owner of that property and also a different engineer than was previously, and they've been trying to schedule an appointment with us to come in and show us a new plan too as well. So he is still working towards an end goal. It's not like it's just a
That's
stagnant
good.
property.
Yeah, because of these extensive extensions, that property.
Yes.
So
That
that
he
would,
is working forward with something, and we're
Okay.
trying to get a pre-app with the new developer, a new engineer.
okay.
Right.
My apologies for the crying baby. Hold on one second.
Oh my.
Take it out, son.
Yeah.
Sorry,
I wonder what Roxanne's saying. That will be fun to hear.
I just asked him to move into another room. That's all I did. All those that are in favor of a recommendation to extend for this
positive?
ordinance, just raise your hand so that we can say, okay, so the
Or
top, yeah,
positive recommendation.
right.
Yep.
Yeah, because they have to have a hearing, right, on,
July 6th in time for before July 15th.
okay.
Yep.
All righty.
Great, thank you.
So the next discussion, I think most of you got my email, is about the discussion on the mixed use ordinance that we did send to town council. And I sat in on that council meeting in May. There were some changes and some concerns about that. I wanted to bring them back to you. They were going to vote on this. They had a public hearing. No one spoke, and I was very frustrated. I should have asked to be on the Zoom portion of the call so I could make comments. But they were going so quickly that by the time I was getting my comment typed, because I don't type fast, into Facebook, they were, down to another situation. So I wanted to make some things clear and make sure I have them right with the commission. I am going to be, they did table the motion. I have spoken with Larry about this. There's a couple things. The main issue was that they would like to vote on the pattern book and then hand it over to the Planning Commission. In accordance with our code book, 98, section 98, which talks about site plans, subdivisions. If you look under Article 3, which is administration, you see under B, you see the following things. The Planning Commission shall administer this chapter and in furtherance of said authority shall, and it gives 6 things: maintain pertinent current records of the chapter, initiate appropriate proceedings to enforce the provisions, receive, process, check all plats for compliance, forward copies of the subdivision plat to other town, county, and state officials and agencies for their recommendation, and report wherever appropriate, give preliminary and final approval of all subdivisions submitted, make all other determinations required by regulations herein. So according to this, it's not whether it's legal or illegal. I understand this is an important, I've lost everybody, sorry. I understand that this decision is important. However, we've been appointed and given that authority to make these decisions. We have taken the necessary training. We continue to train. Some of us do extra training. I am opposed to this. I have spoken, I received I did not receive a reply from all the commissioners, but I did from most of them. I understand that the town council would like to have their eyes and ears on it. I don't want to have I don't want to have this animosity between the two, but I think that by having the town council vote on this, they're putting it in a political arena. We as planning commissioners are the legislative end, let's say the black and the white.
No,
If
they're
you
the
do this-
legislature. They're the
Thank
legislature.
you. Exactly. Thank you. So there were questions also about when the town council would participate, when they would do this vote. We do not and we should, in this ordinance, have a definition of what the pattern book is. And I think that if you remember all of the things that we've gone over, the pattern book is considered the site plan or the subdivision plan for the development. There's one other issue, but we'll talk to this one first, and then I'll get to the other one. Does anybody have any comments? Leslie?
I have a comment. So that's, I think, sort of the big picture. And when after I got Roxanne's email and I did watch the June 1st town council meeting, what I'm confused about is some of the specifics, where it seemed when I went and rewatched our workshop, the planning commission workshop in February, it seemed that we had discussed that the pattern book was something that was going to be done early in the process, like almost like a phase one. I mean, there were different, I remember we discussed like how many plans are we actually, doing here. But we certainly talked about the pattern book as a phase one. So these are practical questions. So is the town council interested in coming in during that phase one where the developer is presenting to us and maybe we have a charrette and then, they're voting on it there? So that's one issue. The other thing the ordinance says, proposed ordinance, is it also says at the end of this whole process that the planning commission will vote on the final site plan, including the pattern book. So I'm not sure if that means, we never really voted on the pattern book in the beginning, or it just means we're voting on the final site plan. And of course that includes the pattern book. So those are just, but my concern, I mean, I don't quite understand, I guess similar to Roxanne in a way, but how, I mean, are these developers, are you going to make them go through this whole thing again? And because from my understanding, people have for years criticized the planning commission saying we're anti-business. And to me, this is kind of more anti-business, because it's like, we're going to go through the whole thing. The developer, they're going to go through the whole thing with us, and then they're going to have to redo it. And what if we've gotten all the way to the end, and then town council wants to change things? So it really has to be, if they want to be involved, then they can't just wait until the end and say, oh, no, don't like it. They really have to be a player in this. They have to do the work along with us. So that's the only way that I see that this could possibly work in any way.
It's like having a workshop in the beginning with the town council, the planning commission, and the developer right off the bat. And that also, because it's a workshop, it's a public meeting, and people from the public can be there, because that's another concern I have, is a lot of times the public says, why are we just learning about this? And it's at the public hearing stage. And I think that these are important things that we need to address the public and have them informed. I know it's hard. Early.
Yeah.
And in talking with other municipalities, I've been researching this all month on the other municipalities, other attorneys that deal a lot in land use issues. They seem to think that it's kind of out of the ordinary, and because of the although in the land use article, it doesn't, it is vague, but we do have it here in our code book. And, you know, I think there are some things that we probably should add into this, which I'm going to bring to the council on Monday night. One of the things is the definition of the pattern book. Is it the site plan? Is it the subdivision plan? I think that we decided that it was. I just want to make sure that it was that. The only other thing that was brought up, because we put back in the Airbnb, and yes, that's a name of a business. So short-term rental is what you would really call it. So the Airbnb should be struck out of there to start out with, and it should just say short-term rentals.
They didn't put it back in. Though I also want to speak to that once we've addressed the pattern book issue.
I understand where it's a good thing to have, and I think we should have it. However, in speaking with other municipalities, there are a lot of issues that have started occurring, and I think that needs to be pulled out and separate, and we should address some regulations, even as far as asking them to register the rental, because if there were issues and the police needed to go or there were problems, we'd need to have to find the owner. If we couldn't find the owner, we do not have a record, a simple record of the owner. And I just think a registration of any rental is important. Not that you have to charge anyone to register, because some places do. Some places charge as much as $200, and they have.
All right, Roxanne.
What?
All right.
Okay.
Detail, too much detail. All right. Does anybody else? Oh, sorry. I didn't mean to interrupt you. Go ahead, Roxanne.
That's okay. No, that's fine.
Ask if.
That's just what I think. But I want to tell you that because I'm taking that to the town council on Monday night.
Does anybody recall my question, and including Tom, as in terms of when we were looking at the pattern book and having the developer create the pattern book?
Yes, I do. And one of the concerns we had was because we didn't have experience with this form of development district, MXD, but we felt we had a need for it, that we had space and we had area within the town boundary, that this was appropriate to consider. We were concerned because we didn't have local experience in how MXD, you know, the totality of it, the comprehensiveness of it, the balance between commercial and residential, and how much of each might be needed, and so forth. And it would vary from one community to another. I know Roxanne and I went and toured several other MXD locations in the region just to get more of a sense of how they were laid out and how they operated. So I think the idea was to give us an overview, as well as council and elected leaders. I don't think it was to try to create yet another approval phase, you know, for the developer and the landowners. So, and we had some discussion. And I remember some of Barney's comments. Are we talking about a site plan and a concept plan and then a final site plan, or are we suggesting we need three entirely separate phases? I felt like we felt like we didn't need more than two, but the pattern book might be part of the original site plan. The other thing I think is, where am I? I'm losing it. What was the other thing I wanted to comment on? Gosh, I can't remember now.
I thought we actually put more restrictions on the developer to actually create another phase. Where I thought we were at 3 or 4 phases.
I think
the pattern book, the concept, the preliminary, and the final. I thought we had made that as
right. But where is the pattern book? Is that in
pattern book
phase 1?
is step 1.
Right.
Step 1,
Yeah.
and again, having the town council at that same meeting and possibly even the public to get
Yeah,
everybody.
I mean, if
sort of on
that's
the
what they
same page.
want to do, then that's,
Once again,
I mean, that's what they would have to do as far as I can see.
right,
Which
like a
might
charrette
be
and
fine
whatever
with
it is at the beginning.
Oh, the other comment I was going to make was, I think that there is some education and experience that we gained from the last master plan update, where we had workshops and we had sharing and shared discussion with other commissions and with the council, chapter by chapter by chapter, as we were going through the development of the master plan. I think workshops, in the case of a new district like this, in an area that's going to be as significant and important to us as MXD is going to be, I think the idea of doing shared workshops between Planning Commission and Council might be very, very useful and very productive.
I agree, Bill. I think that is an excellent way to keep kind of everybody and do it early in the process. And that way the public will be there too. So they will have knowledge of what's going to be happening sooner other than later.
Mhm.
Does anyone else have any? Judy?
Yeah, Pam, maybe you can answer. I didn't watch the council meeting, so I apologize. What I thought one of the bigger issues, though, that Ed heard was that the council was concerned that there was a sense of trying to protect the planning commission. Like they didn't want the planning commission to have to deal with any bad kind of community interactions or anything like that. Is that what the driving sense of this is, of why the commission would, or the council all of a sudden wants to take over one piece of our role? Or
yeah, so it's quite interesting. So when you look at it sort of from our perspective, this could potentially be one of the largest development projects that Mount Airy has seen. And it does have the potential to change our future of Mount Airy. So the idea is, one, being town council, we're elected and we do answer to the citizens, we have to proceed cautiously. But with that said, we also don't want the planning commission, you know, if town council makes a bad decision, we have to answer to the public. You all shouldn't have to be put under that scrutiny if a large number of the community doesn't support kind of what we're trying to do here.
Well, I'd imagine that there would be a large amount of the community who are going to be very much against any kind of this large development. I mean, I know we're talking specifically about one large, the Beck property for right now. Right. It does apply other places. I guess I'm just looking at it from a sense of doing it more in a level of partnership versus an ultimate, you know, set aside to being only it's you or us. I think it sets up a really bad dynamic. And I think that for me, I've been on the planning commission 7-8 years now. And I think we've taken our fair share of hits over the years. So I mean, and I think we've survived them. So I'm not as worried about that. And I appreciate the council's concern around that, but I'm more concerned about the dynamic of us not being in partnership together. And so I'm wondering if there is a way, instead of it being your final say, you guys have the final say no matter what anyway. I mean, nothing, if it doesn't get to you, if we even pass it, it still has to go up to you guys. So I think that I'd be very concerned. And I think if that's your biggest issue, it is the biggest project.
I'm not sure that, just sorry to interrupt, but I'm not sure that that's the case. It would not
So hang on, guys. If I can kind of interject here, there certainly is not a lack of confidence in this group. The knowledge and experience here is without it, there's no question. Basically, you know, I'm not here to force my opinion on anyone. I'm here to be your voice at the council table. So basically what you all have been discussing, I've been writing down notes, and I'm happy to take them back to town council and say, you know, this is what the planning commission talked about, and this is what they would like to see. We can certainly, you know, at the next meeting, talk about the workshop. It's actually, you know, it could be a good conversation. We should have it. But the idea here is, and I want you all to know this, it's just sort of a precautionary measure that we all can take as a community to make sure that we protect our community. You know, we all want to see Center Street go through. We would like to see the back property developed. We just have to be cautious about it. And I think this is a caution we can take. You know, I think part of the idea was, and if Carl's still on the call, that town council would review the pattern book first, have a public hearing so that the public could have input at the beginning of the process, and then turn it over to the planning commission. You know, we're not trying to take your process away from you. We're just trying to, you know, protect a little bit more.
Pamela, if I may, you know, I think Judy was trying to be what you were, being quite eloquent in what you were saying. And I think we would love to work in coordination with the town council. What I don't think this group appreciates is how liability transfer was you know, kind of under the cloak of control. I mean, we all know that you get the final say, and it's control. But liability transfer and protecting the town council or protecting the planning commission was a little silly. So we didn't like that, and I'm pretty sure I can speak for the folks on here who, you know, felt that way. We get it. We can work with you. You guys ultimately get the final decision, but I mean, come on, liability. I mean, there's a lot of things we make decisions on. We can handle it. We can handle liability. You know, some of it. Let's just cut through that, and let's try to work together on this. But transfer of liability is, we get it. We know what's really going on there. That's fine.
Actually,
So I actually disagree with you horribly. It's not transfer of power.
okay.
Well, power grab.
We all are in agreement that we want to work together on this. And I think we're looking at the preliminary, you know, if they're going to have a public hearing, then I think it ought to be either a joint public hearing or a workshop.
Excuse me, Roxanne, what purpose do we serve then? If they're going to take it from the beginning to the end, what is our function?
They're only going to do the preliminary, and we have to do the rest. And they
it hasn't been, sorry to interrupt, it hasn't been decided yet. We're giving our input. Scott, I appreciate your input.
Oh, we already did our input on that. It got modified.
Oh, I know, but we're giving it again.
Exactly.
We're giving
right.
Revised input. Got it.
Yeah, because, well, we didn't know that what was going to happen at the June 1st town council meeting. So
I had no idea. I was taken a little aback by that. But if you look at the administration roles, the planning commission gives preliminary and final approval of all subdivisions submitted. It does not go, Tom, correct me if I'm wrong, it does not go to council for final approval.
That's correct. Let me sort of back up on that and say what I was tasked to do. I was tasked to advise the council on whether or not it would or it could be lawful to arrange things this way. That is to say that the town council would have final approval of the pattern book, and then presumably things would go back to the planning commission from there for the remainder of the process, which would be development review and plan review and approval and all of that. On looking at the state code, it's my opinion that what's being proposed is lawful under the state code. What I also said, though, and this part of my review I will not complete probably until tomorrow, because I haven't had a chance to get to it yet. I said I needed to look at what portions of our code, other than what's in the current draft ordinance, would need to change to accommodate this change in procedure for this particular part of a development review for this particular kind of development. And I haven't done that. And so what Roxanne is reading, it sort of fulfills my suspicion. And that is, it's not probably just a matter of making a couple of quick swipes at what's in the ordinance. You're going to have to do a deeper dive into some of the changes.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And then the other thing I would say is, and what I will say to the council is, just because it's lawful, obviously we're not making any, I don't make any judgments on whether it's a good idea or a bad idea, but from a legal perspective, there is one thing that I can see being unanswered and kind of difficult. So when you all, let's say, disapprove a plan, we know that there are rights of appeal to that to the circuit court. Why? Because you're engaged in a quasi-judicial function, okay? Now we're adding into it an element or an action by the legislature, the legislative body, into the mix. So when ultimately does a developer appeal? What is he appealing? Is it still, even though the council as a legislature is weighed in, is it still a quasi-judicial function that the courts are free to review and either agree with or disagree with? Is there an aspect to this that's legislative? Courts typically don't wade into legislative decisions. So what I will be saying is that, yes, in general terms, there's probably a lawful way of doing this, but it may not be just as easy and as simple as maybe some folks are thinking it may be. So that will be my ultimately what I'm going to say. I have said.
So Tom, when will we actually have your final findings?
Probably tomorrow or the next day, something like that.
Okay.
I mean, there's a way of doing it, but as I say, it may not just be, a couple edits here or there.
Mm-hmm. That's what I was finding out as well, Tom. So I've written down, I have Leslie's comments. She has emailed them to me. I've heard your other comments, Judy and Scott. If they're Lindy or if anyone else wants to send an email about any concerns or comments they have, the council meeting in July is going to be at Town Hall, and I do have a seat reserved for that meeting. So I will be there. I was going to also write a letter of our concern to the town council. I can still do that, or just voice my concerns at the meeting. It's up to the members.
Well, Roxanne, I'm comfortable with it being voiced at the meeting.
Okay.
It goes on record. If you capture all your thoughts in your
You heard them. That's I have it written down.
So it'll be captured on video and and in
right.
So
that would be sufficient.
Okay.
Yeah.
Leslie, I have your email and the questions that you had.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I want to make some comments on the short-term rental portion.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Once we're done with this part.
I think we're done this part. So you can go to the short-term rental.
So as I was saying, I watched the town council meeting on June 1st, and I guess the first thing that I noticed was that it did not seem that any of the council members had watched our February workshop, even though you were going through this very, very important document, and there were all these questions about why we had made certain decisions. So that was kind of surprising. And then so when Roxanne brought this issue to my attention about the pattern book, I thought it was rather ironic, I have to say. But putting that aside, the Airbnb or short-term rental, I know exactly, at least why I wanted it taken off, because I was the one who suggested it. And other people might have had different ultimate reasons for agreeing. But I'll tell you why I brought it up. And the first thing Roxanne mentioned, and it has to do with just issues that communities are having, and like there's no hotel tax and they're not regulated, and other entities are put at a disadvantage. So that's already kind of on the record, and Roxanne can talk more about that, or whatever. But my concern was more what Patty Washabach thought was our reason for wanting Airbnb removed. Something about not wanting rentals or tenants in Mount Airy. Excuse me. Which is a violation of the Fair Housing Act, for one thing. So certainly that was not our reasoning to want to take short-term rentals out of the approved uses. Airbnbs, this is going on all over the country. And even though we're a nice little, conservative town in Maryland, it's happening here too. Airbnbs reduce affordable housing. Homeowners who might be thinking of renting can make more money off of Airbnbs or short-term rentals. It's completely different living next to a renter who's a full-time. I have renters next door to me who I know and I've known for years, and we're friends, we're neighbors. I can't imagine living next to a place where every week there's some new people there and you have no idea what they're doing or who they are and what their hours are. I mean, it's just ludicrous. And I live in a house, and there's like with a yard. I don't live in a townhouse, or someplace where there's going to be a more urban setting and closer proximity to people. I think it's a horrible, horrible idea. So let's see. So basically that's sort of the gist of the substance of it, is that it's just a bad idea in terms of neighbors and stability, housing stability. I mean, people who rent can be stable neighbors. Just because you don't own doesn't mean that you're evil or bad, or not the right color or whatever. So initially, when we discussed years ago now this ordinance, part of it was because we need a diverse housing stock for people to live, not people to come and rent for a week or 2 days. We need affordable housing for younger people, for people who want to move here because there's better schools for their kids, people who are downsizing, all kinds of reasons that we need. I mean, this is a very, very expensive place to live. The other thing that I know Roxanne knows, and of course Tom knows, but I just noticed when I was after your June 1st meeting, is that the Maryland land use article has been amended. And so the next time we do our master plan, we will have a housing element in addition to all the other elements. And the two prongs of it are, actually I didn't write them down, but one is what is your working housing, like housing that's affordable for the police and the teachers and the firefighters. And the other is your actual low income housing. That's what everybody hates. And that is part of the plan. And you know what else? The legislature, the Maryland legislature, passed House Bill 231, Senate Bill 530, Housing Opportunities Made Equal, which expands housing policy in the state to include providing for fair housing for all citizens, regardless of source of income, which means it will be illegal to refuse to take vouchers if you are a landlord renting in this state. So I just want to make sure that people on the town council, as well as on the planning commission, understand the law before they go making comments that could be really misconstrued, or not misconstrued, but could be considered to be illegal if the acts were actually followed. So that is my comment on that issue. Thank you.
Thanks, Leslie. Does anyone else have any comments about that? I think that you have to understand that short-term rental also means like 1 or 2 months. 1 or 2 or 3 months.
Well,
I know you're trying to say like,
Airbnb, it wasn't,
Yeah.
you know,
right,
put in those terms.
exactly.
I mean, you're right. It's different. And we talked about this, I think, that if
Mhm.
someone, you know, is selling their house and wants to buy a smaller house and they might need to rent for 3 months or 6 months,
Right.
you know, which is a different thing.
Hmm.
And I don't know if we have to figure out a way to put that or not, but that is a completely different thing than these short-term vacation type rentals, which
Yeah.
is very unstable for communities.
I think that we do. And I think we do. So I'm going to mention that
My
to
other
the
cat
council.
hears the baby.
Oh.
He's like, what is that? Jody, what is that?
Yeah. And Tom, I don't know what your opinion is with the short-term rentals as far as, you know, you're seeing it in other places, and it is a trickle down effect, because some of the people that I've talked to said those people don't even, they might eat, you know, in the town, but they don't support the town while they're there. So that was another thing that I found as well.
So I'm confused. Does the council say they want to include short-term rentals? Or
Pam
we-
wanted to put it back in, but the council said no.
Okay.
But I
I'm
still,
okay with-
I still wanted to address the issue
Okay.
because the reasoning, our reasoning was misstated at the council meeting. And so I wanted to clarify that. That was my.
Okay.
And I will make sure I mention that to Leslie on Monday
So
night.
I did support putting it back in. For our community, we don't have a single hotel that people can stay at. So when you have out of town guests or family over for the holidays, you either have to house them in your place. There is no bed and breakfast close by that people can come into town and tour our downtown and spend their dollars. I mean, there's nothing.
Hotels
that
are
is-
an approved use. Hotels
They're-
aren't
they're-
approved use in mixed use. Hotels are
Right.
approved.
There are no opportunities for Mount Airy to become a tourism type town. So I do support short-term rentals. You can call it Airbnb, you can call it whatever you want, but yes, I do. And I stand behind that.
Moving on.
Okay, so are there any other comments as far as that's concerned? John, you want to go over the future item, or Pam?
John, do you want me? John, you're muted.
John, you're muted.
My bad. So yeah, so the playground that's being inclusive playground that's being built at Watkins Park has been approved by the Parks Board. The money has been grant money, and Avis T21 has generated money that this is going to be a no-cost improvement to the town park at Watkins, at the skate park, the old skate park foundation that's out there. There's going to be a gazebo and an inclusive playground area. And I apologize, Judy, you didn't get a copy of that in your packet. It is on the website with the agenda. And again, Pam has been sort of spearheading this for years, and it's finally coming to fruition, which is awesome. So
Yeah, so it's actually, so real quick, it's a 2 or 3 phase playground, depending on how much money we raise and how many grants we get. We did receive a grant for the first phase, which is about 2/3 of the playground equipment and a pavilion. The next phase would then be additional playground equipment and potentially an amphitheater. And the idea is that we would build Mount Airy's first ADA compliant, universally designed playground for ages 0 to 99, regardless of ability. So there will be equipment for sensory, climbing, athletic, visual, a lot of different things for a lot of different people. So if you are a grandmother bringing your grandkids to the playground, you will be able to access it. If you're a mother with a child, a toddler, and an infant in a stroller, you will be able to have access to it. Or if you have a child that's in a wheelchair or yourself are in a wheelchair, you will be able to play on the entire field of the playground. So not just, you know, walking up or strolling up to the curb and then not being able to, you know, play on mulch. It's going to be a, I think it's, John, correct me. It's been so long since we did this. It's a rubber base, correct?
It is a rubber base at the actual playground area. There'll be the 30 by 50 structure to sort of match the existing gazebo or patio pavilion that's up above the basketball courts.
Mm-hmm.
And then there's also going to be a designated area for what's the board game with the little things?
So
Gina is bringing it up. So there it is.
So we
Thank you,
threw
Gina.
we threw the cornhole in there just as kind of a placeholder. We're not sure what that area will be yet. It could be additional playground equipment. It could just continue to be sort of an open area where you could have cornhole. But cornhole isn't technically part of the design.
Okay. Yeah, so that brown material is actually going to be a rubberized shock absorber type of material to limit falls and injuries.
Yeah. So the idea behind the entire area, the amphitheater, the pavilion, and the playground, is that this could become our community's gathering place. We could do Sunday in the park with live concerts, you know, afternoons. It would be a place that you and your family could go for full afternoons, enjoying, you know, picnic time, playtime, again, live music, maybe some kids shows in the amphitheater. So I'm really excited that it's finally moving forward. It's been many years in the works.
And it was just brought to you guys just so you were informed of what was happening in your community. Again, the Parks Board has actually already approved the addition to that Watkins Park. It was just to let you guys know what was happening.
Where's the grant dollars coming from, Pam?
The state of Maryland. And Gina, if you're still on the line, because I always forget the name, but it's like open projects and open space or.
This one is the community park grant.
Say again.
Say that again.
Community parks and playgrounds.
Yeah, community. Yeah, there you go.
And my understanding is we have to pay for it and then we get reimbursed.
Yes.
Fantastic. That's great.
That's
Really
awesome.
Yeah,
Great.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that'll be awesome.
So Ava's T21 Foundation committed to 75,000 of the first 275,000. So 200,000 is coming from the state. Ava's T21 Foundation will repay the town the 75,000. So basically, it's a brand new amenity that is not costing taxpayers, you know, a dime.
Gina, did you just say there's a comment on Facebook regarding that?
Actually, it's regarding the short-term rentals. And the question was asked, have there been any documented problems in Mount Airy as a result of short-term rentals? Renter. I don't know if I want to go back, but I thought I'd share that anyway.
Yeah, I don't think we have any. That's
No,
the point.
we don't.
We do have Airbnbs currently in Mount Airy.
How many do we have and where are they?
And where are they?
I don't know how many exactly.
Where are they? We can look them up.
Probably all over.
Okay.
And I'm sorry, Roxanne, just reading through 98-3, and again, maybe it doesn't need to be said, but you know, it does say you guys are giving, your planning commission is giving preliminary and final approvals. It doesn't mention anything about a pattern book inside that code section.
we understand that, and that's what, Tom was referencing. There are issues here in this ordinance that we need to address because they're not in our code book.
Right.
There's some things that need to be cleaned up a little bit, I think.
Yeah.
Now the pattern book is in the code in chapter 98, however, because remember,
yeah.
asked MXUCC, and that also has that really started the pattern book process. Of course, it did so because it took from the already existing draft of the MXD. So it's chicken and egg, but in our code we do have a pattern book.
Right, but there's no mention of that inside this 98-3 of like where it falls. If it, at the concept stage, it could be maybe the town council does have, I don't know.
Well, I think we've kind of come to the conclusion that we would like there to be some, a working together relationship. And I think that's what we're, hopefully will come out of the meeting on Monday.
Mm-hmm.
Anyone else have any comments, concerns? Our next meeting will be July 27th at 7 p.m. Are we working towards getting the meetings back into town hall, John?
At this current time, again, the first town council meeting is being held on July the 6th, right?
Mm-hmm.
July the 6th. Sorry about that. I had to look at
Okay,
my
Yoda.
So currently, I still feel like we're not to a point where we really have enough staff to support coming back to town hall. I think the virtual meetings are working. I think it actually works for people sometimes that don't have all the time to be here. I mean, until otherwise, I think we're going to stay on the virtual meeting until either the town administrator, the mayor, or the town council president says that has to go to public, or the governor of Maryland says, hey, everybody's fine.
Well, I would add that at the zoo, it's mandatory for face masks within 6 feet of each other.
Right.
So you don't have that kind of space at the.
No.
It's very limited, yes. And we're restricted even on town council meeting on Monday. We're going to have protocols for coming in the building, and you're going to have to maintain a mask. And again, we've set the seats up, and there's only enough spaces for, I think it's like a dozen people besides the town council. So it's very limited. I think we only have maybe 5 or 6 seats that are currently available to the public. Everybody else, it's either somebody who's presenting, the press, etc. So there's very limited space. So I think currently, we still need to go on this path. I think it is working.
I would agree. I mean, the Zoom work, they work, and we don't have enough space in town hall.
Right. Okay.
Is there a chance that the council meeting will be changed to Zoom at the last minute, given the situation?
I have not heard of that going that way. I know one town council member will not be in attendance and will be attempting to come in on a Zoom call. We're working with CMC currently to try to get those integrations of both those or all 3 technologies, like Facebook. We'll still have to do Facebook. Still going to be televised live in-house, and we're trying to get a Zoom meeting to all blend into each other and there's issues because if you have a computer and you have all these mics, they're going, it creates this reverb, which is deafening.
Right.
No holograms.
So
Alrighty.
it's been challenging.
Well, thank you all for bearing with me and everything. I appreciate all your comments and your work this evening. Thank you so much. Everybody stay safe. Is there do I hear a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
Second. Yeah.
Okay.
Who took that one?
Leslie and Judy seconded it. They seconded both at the same time. It's been moved and seconded. We adjourn. All those in favor?
Aye.
Please raise your hand. Thank you. Great. We'll see you on the 27th. Once again, thank you all send me any comments, and I appreciate you all. Thanks.
Thanks.
Thank you
Good
for
night.
all your help.
Good night, everybody.